Okay, so this is lesson 3, but we are using the back page of your lesson 2 because these are just a little bit harder questions for midpoint and distance, okay? So when we're finding a missing endpoint here, we want to use the midpoint formula, but focus on what we're solving for, okay? So your original x1, y1, your 2 points, and x2, y2, to find the midpoint, you take, well here, let's rewrite that. To find the xy of the midpoint. So let's call it x midpoint, comma y midpoint, to be very clear. Are at x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay? So, for these problems, you're going to be given a midpoint, an x or a y, and you're going to be finding the x1 or the y1. Okay, so it's a little bit different than what we were doing on the other page. Alright, let's see what's going on in example 1. Okay, so find the coordinates of A if M, negative 1, 2 is the midpoint of AB, and B has coordinates of 3, negative 5. Okay, so just above I'm going to sketch a little point. So we have a line segment here. A, B, and M is the midpoint. And they all have coordinates. Okay, so notice how this is a little different. B, you're given coordinates 3, negative 5. And you're given M, negative 1, 2. What you don't know is A. Okay? And that's a little different than what we were doing on the other page. That should be a question mark. Okay, sorry. Bad question mark. But that's what we're solving for is A. So, we've got to use our formula and actually plug in and kind of split up x and y into their own problem, okay? So, we're going to solve x and split it up. These equal each other, okay? And then we're going to have y split up into another equation. So you kind of have to do x on its own and y on its own, alright? And then, what's important here is that our x's go together and our y's go together in two separate equations. So you can't do the whole midpoint formula together. Alright, so let me show you. M, this is an xm, ym, and B is an x2, y2. A is going to be your x1, y1. Okay, so just keep everything together with the formula. Okay, so let's plug in, and I'm going to make this green so you can see that I'm doing the x's first. Okay, so xm is negative 1, and that's equal to x1. We don't know that, so let's just call it x1, plus x2 is 3, all over 2. Okay? So, I've split up the x's and made its own equation. Alright, and I'm going to need some room here so you guys can see. And then we have to solve it for x1. Alright, so now this just becomes an equation to solve. I'm going to times 2 to both sides. So I'm going to get negative 2 equals x1 plus 3. Okay? And then I'm going to subtract 3. So negative 5 is x1. Okay, and that's the value of A's x coordinate. Alright? So, we're going to split up y, this blue equation, and set those equal to each other to find the y coordinate now. Alright, so I'm dealing with my blue equation. Alright, so y from your midpoint is 2, and then we don't know y1, but we were given y2 is -5 all over 2. Okay, so we put in the midpoint here to the left, and then this one came from B, and y1 is from A. So that's what we're solving for, is the A. Okay, hopefully you see that. It may take a couple of examples to understand. So I'm going to times both sides by 2 because now I'm just solving for y1, and so I get 4 equals y1. That's plus -5, so I'm just going to say -5 to kind of make it easier to understand what to do next. Then we're going to add 5 to both sides, and 9 equals y1. Okay, so putting those together, the coordinates of A are at -5, 9. Okay, and that's your actual answer, because A is a coordinate points, right? Okay, so that's number 1, and I'm writing really big, so I'm just going to erase so I can move on to number 2. Alright. And number 2 is a very similar idea. Okay, we're given K, we don't know J, and we're given the midpoint. Alright, so a little different than the front page, but same idea as number 1. So we have K here, and it says it's the midpoint. Okay, so now you have a segment that's J, K, L. Alright, and so we're given K, and L, we're given the endpoint, -8, 6. Okay, so K is going to be your XM, YM, your XY of your midpoint, and then L is going to be your X2, Y2, because it's at the end. You could put them as X1, Y1, and it would be the same. Okay, so let's set up our formula. I'll rewrite it since you can't see it. So X from your midpoint, and then we'll do Y midpoint, 2 separate equations. Alright, that's going to be x1 plus x2 all over 2, and your y, y1 plus y2 all over 2. Okay, so they're 2 separate equations to solve. Now, we know that x2 is -8, and x from the midpoint is -5, so let's plug all those in. -5 equals x1 plus -8, or you can write -8 right away if you want, all over 2. And I'm going to go ahead and finish solving this, so times by 2 on both sides, -10 equals x1 minus 8, so I just made this minus, add 8, and -2 is x1. Okay? Now let's plug in for the y coordinate point. Y from your midpoint is 10. Okay, and y1, we don't know that, but y2 is 6. Okay, and then let's solve. So times by 2 on both sides, 20 equals y1 plus 6, and then we're going to subtract 6. 14 is y1. Okay, so putting those together, the coordinate point for J is -2, 14. You want to put your x, y in the right order. So be very careful with that. I would hate for you to mix that up and put 14, -2, but you did all of the work right. Okay? Alright, so let's do number 3. And I'll try to go a little bit faster here. Okay. I'm going to draw it and then just plug it on in. Alright, so we're going to find the coordinates of R if Q is the midpoint of PR. So we have P, R, and Q is the midpoint, so Q is going to get the M's. And P has coordinates of 5, 6. Okay? Alright, so Q is XM, YM. And then 5, 6, that's your X1, X2, Y2. Alright? So XM is equal to X1 plus X2 over 2. And then YM is Y1 plus Y2 over 2. Okay, so let's plug in one at a time. X sub M is -1. X1 plus X2 is 5 all over 2. And solve. So let's times by 2. -2 equals X1 plus 5. And subtract 5. -7 is X1. Alright, so let's plug in for Y. YM is 3. And Y2 is 6. Okay, and then we'll times by 2 on both sides. So 6 equals Y1 plus 6. Subtract 6, and 0 is Y1. Alright, so our coordinate of P should be -7, 0. That's P.